Kyle Martinez stepped off the transport ship and onto the gleaming surface of Valoria Prime. The capital world of the Valorian Empire stretched before him in all its alien glory. Towers of crystal and metal reached into the purple sky, each one taller than any building on Earth. Flying vehicles zipped between them like schools of fish in a vast ocean. He took a deep breath. The air tasted different here, sweeter somehow, but still breathable. The scientists back home had been right about that much, at least. "This way, human," a voice said from behind him. Kyle turned to see a Valorian guard, tall and elegant, with pale blue skin and large dark eyes. The guard's tone carried no warmth, only duty. Kyle followed the guard through wide streets filled with beings from 100 different worlds. None of them were human. Some had scales, others had fur, and a few seemed to be made of living light. They all moved with purpose, barely glancing at the lone human in their midst. The imperial palace rose in the center of the city like a mountain of polished stone. It took 20 minutes to walk from the outer gates to the main entrance. Kyle used the time to observe everything around him. He noted the positions of guards, the flow of traffic, the way people bowed when certain officials passed by. Inside, the palace was even more impressive. Halls stretched in every direction, their walls covered in moving pictures that showed the history of the empire. Kyle saw great battles, conquered worlds, and the faces of queens who had ruled for centuries. "Wait here," the guard said, leaving Kyle in a vast chamber with a ceiling so high he could barely see it. Other beings waited as well, all of them dressed in fine robes and jewels. They whispered to each other and cast curious glances at Kyle. He wore a simple dark suit, the formal uniform of Earth's diplomatic corps. Compared to the others, he looked plain. He knew that was exactly how they saw him. Plain, simple, unimportant. A Valorian noble approached him, moving with the grace of a dancer. "You are the human representative?" the noble asked, his voice smooth as silk. "I am. Kyle Martinez, ambassador from Earth." The noble's lips curved in what might have been a smile. "How quaint. Your species only just discovered faster than light travel. Did they not? 3 years ago? I believe?" "That's correct," Kyle said evenly. "And now you seek an audience with Queen Solara herself." The noble's tone suggested this was amusing. "Do you even understand the honor being granted to you? Do you even understand the honor being granted to you? Do you even understand? Do you even understand? Do you even understand? Do you even understand? Do you even understand?" "I understand it very well," Kyle replied. Other nobles had gathered now, drawn by curiosity. One of them, a female with silver markings on her face, spoke up. "Your people live such short lives. Barely a century at most. How can you hope to understand the complexities of galactic politics?" Kyle met her gaze calmly. "We learn quickly." This brought laughter from several nobles. "Learn quickly," one repeated. "The arrogance of youth, even in a species." A door at the far end of the chamber opened, and a herald stepped through. "The queen will see the human ambassador now." The laughter stopped. The nobles stepped back, and Kyle walked forward alone. He passed through the doorway, into a throne room that took his breath away. The walls were made of some transparent material that showed the stars beyond. It felt like standing in the middle of space itself. At the far end, on a throne of white stone, sat Queen Solara. She was beautiful in a way that was both alien and familiar. Her skin was pale blue, like all Valorians, but her eyes were different from the others Kyle had seen. They were gold, bright as twin suns, and they seemed to look right through him. "Approach," she said, her voice filling the chamber without being loud. Kyle walked forward until he stood at the base of the throne. He bowed, as Earth's diplomatic protocols had taught him. "Your Majesty, I bring greetings from Earth and all humanity. We are honored by your willingness to meet with us." "I grant this audience out of courtesy," Queen Solara said. "Your species is new to the stars. It would be unkind to ignore you completely. She leaned forward slightly. One. But let us be clear, Ambassador Martinez. The Valorian Empire has stood for 10,000 years. We have seen countless species rise and fall. What makes humanity worthy of our attention? Kyle had prepared for this question. We don't claim to be worthy yet, Your Majesty. We come seeking knowledge and friendship. We hope to learn from the Empire's wisdom. Wisdom, the Queen repeated. She tilted her head, studying him. Do you know what I see when I look at you, human? No, Your Majesty. I see a being who will live and die in the blink of an eye. Your entire civilization is young by our standards. You have barely begun to understand the universe. She stood, and Kyle realized she was nearly 7 feet tall. Yet you come here, alone, speaking of friendship. Either you are very brave or very foolish. Perhaps both, Kyle said. This brought a flicker of something to the Queen's face. Surprise? Interest? It vanished too quickly to tell. A Valorian noble stepped forward from the side of the room. He wore robes of deep red and carried himself with authority. Your Majesty, if I may. The Queen nodded. The noble turned to Kyle. I am Lord Kessian, Chief Advisor to the throne. I think a small demonstration is in order. We, Valorians, possess certain natural abilities that younger species lack. For instance. He paused, and Kyle felt something press against his mind. It was like invisible fingers trying to pry open his thoughts. I can read surface thoughts, Lord Kessian said. It is a simple matter for us. Let us see what the human ambassador is really thinking. The pressure increased. Kyle felt it like a weight on his skull. Around him, other nobles watched with interest. This was a test, he realized. They wanted to see him squirm, to expose his fear or anger, or whatever else they expected to find. But Kyle had trained for this. Earth scientists had known about Valorian telepathy. They had prepared him as best they could. He cleared his mind and focused on a single thought. An image of Earth from space, beautiful and blue. He held that image steady, letting it fill his consciousness. The pressure continued for several long seconds. Then, Lord Kessian stepped back, frowning. Curious, he muttered. What did you find? Queen Solara asked. Nothing unexpected, Your Majesty. Simple thoughts of his home world. But Lord Kessian's voice carried a note of confusion. His mind is surprisingly still. Kyle said nothing. He kept his face neutral, his body relaxed. Queen Solara's golden eyes narrowed slightly. Interesting, she said softly. She descended from her throne and walked closer to Kyle, studying him like a puzzle she couldn't quite solve. Most beings panic when touched telepathically. You did not. I have nothing to hide, Kyle said simply. Everyone has something to hide. The Queen circled him slowly. I have ruled for 300 years, Ambassador Martinez. I have met thousands of beings from hundreds of worlds. I have learned to read more than just thoughts. I read body language, tone, the tiny movements that reveal truth. She stopped in front of him. And you confuse me. How so, Your Majesty? You stand before the most powerful ruler in this sector of space, yet you show no fear. You were subjected to telepathic intrusion, yet you remained calm. You are either exceptionally well-trained or, she paused, or you are not what you appear to be. Kyle met her gaze steadily. I am exactly what I appear to be. A human. An ambassador. Nothing more. For a long moment, they stood there, the ancient queen and the young human, measuring each other. Finally, Queen Solara smiled. It was a small smile, but genuine. Very well, Ambassador Martinez. I will grant you guest quarters in the palace. You may stay for 1 month. During that time, we will discuss what role, if any, humanity might play in galactic affairs. She turned and walked back to her throne. But I warn you, do not waste my time. If your species has nothing of value to offer, I will send you home. Thank you, Your Majesty. We won't disappoint you. As Kyle was led from the throne room, he felt Queen Solara's eyes on his back. She was curious about him. Good. Curiosity was the first step toward trust. And trust was what humanity needed most. The game had begun. Kyle spent his first week in the palace, learning everything he could. He attended formal dinners where nobles discussed politics in careful words. He walked the gardens where advisors met in private. He listened more than he spoke. And he remembered everything. The Valorians began to see him as harmless. Just another diplomat, making notes and asking simple questions. They talked freely around him, forgetting that the quiet human in the corner was paying attention. On the 8th day, everything changed. Kyle was in the palace library, reading about Valorian military history, when alarms began to sound. The lights shifted from their normal soft blue to harsh red. All around him, Valorians stopped what they were doing and looked up in shock. A guard rushed into the library. All guests must return to their quarters immediately. What's happening? Kyle asked. But the guard was already moving on, shouting the same message to others. Kyle made his way back through halls filled with running soldiers. No one stopped him or answered his questions. When he reached his rooms, he found his communication device flashing with an urgent message from Earth. Ambassador Martinez, we're picking up massive energy signatures near the Valorian border systems. Multiple worlds have gone dark. Recommend extreme caution. Kyle's jaw tightened. He had feared something like this might happen. The intelligence reports back home had suggested a threat was coming. But no one had known when or from where. He spent the next 3 hours locked in his quarters, trying to get information. Finally, near midnight, a messenger arrived with a summons. Queen Solara wanted to see him. The throne room was filled with military officers and advisors when Kyle entered. They all looked grim. Queen Solara sat on her throne, her golden eyes hard as stone. Ambassador Martinez, she said without preamble. Only pieces of it, Your Majesty. I know something has attacked your border systems. Not something, Lord Kessian said bitterly. The Krell. The word sent a ripple through the assembled officers. Kyle saw fear in their faces. Quickly hidden, but unmistakable. The Krell? Kyle asked. I don't know that name. Queen Solara's expression darkened. They are an ancient enemy. A hive-mind species that consumes entire worlds to fuel their expansion. We fought them 400 years ago and drove them back into the dark spaces between galaxies. We thought they were gone forever. She stood. We were wrong. An officer stepped forward, activating a holographic display. It showed a map of the Empire with several systems marked in red. They appeared 3 days ago without warning. 6 systems have fallen already. We estimate their fleet numbers in the thousands. Kyle studied the display. What are your losses? We lost everything in those systems, the officer said quietly. Millions of lives. Entire battle groups. They don't just defeat us, they consume everything. Ships, stations, even the planets themselves are stripped bare. How is that possible? Kyle asked. Queen Solara descended from her throne. The Krell are unlike anything you have encountered, Ambassador. They do not negotiate. They do not retreat. They exist only to consume and grow. She looked tired for the first time since Kyle had met her. And they are stronger now than they were 4 centuries ago. Over the next 2 weeks, Kyle watched the Empire struggle against an enemy it couldn't stop. More systems fell. Battle fleets that had protected the Empire for generations were destroyed in hours. Refugees flooded the inner worlds, bringing stories of horror. Kyle attended strategy meetings when invited, always listening, always learning. The Valorian military was impressive, but rigid. They fought with precision and honor, following tactics that had worked for thousands of years. Against the Krell, those tactics were failing. One evening, Kyle found Queen Solara alone in her private garden. She stood beneath a tree with silver leaves, staring at the stars. "Your Majesty," he said softly. She didn't turn. "Ambassador Martinez, you should not be here. These gardens are private." 9. "The guards let me pass. I think they know you need someone to talk to. Do they?" She finally looked at him. In the starlight, he could see the weight she carried. "What would I say to you, human? That I am watching my empire die? That 10,000 years of civilization may end because I am not strong enough to stop it?" Kyle stepped closer. "You are strong enough. But strength alone won't win this war." "Oh?" There was a sharp edge to her voice. "And what would you suggest? Your species barely has a space fleet. You have fought no wars among the stars. What could you possibly know about defeating the Krell?" "I know about survival," Kyle said. "Humanity has faced extinction more than once in our history. Natural disasters, plagues, wars that nearly destroyed us. We learned something from those dark times." "What did you learn?" "That when the old ways fail, you need new thinking. Your military is powerful, Your Majesty, but it fights the way it has always fought. The Krell have evolved. Your tactics haven't." Queen Solara's eyes flashed with anger. "You dare criticize our military? We have protected this empire for 10,000 years." "I know." Kyle's voice was gentle but firm. "And that's exactly the problem. The Krell know how you fight. They've adapted to counter everything you do. You need to surprise them." "With what?" "We have the most advanced technology in the galaxy. Technology isn't everything. Sometimes the most powerful weapon is the one your enemy doesn't expect." The Queen was quiet for a long moment. "You speak as if humanity has something to offer." "We do. We've been watching the Krell through long-range sensors since they appeared. We've been studying their movements, their tactics, their behavior patterns. And what have you found?" Kyle smiled slightly. "That they're very good at adapting to direct confrontation. But they've never faced an enemy that fights dirty." "Dirty?" The Queen's tone was cold. "The Valorian military does not fight dirty. We fight with honor, and honor is getting your people killed." Kyle's words hung in the air like a challenge. "Your Majesty, I don't mean to offend, but right now, you need to ask yourself what matters more: maintaining honor or saving your empire." Queen Solara turned away from him. "Leave me." Kyle bowed and walked away. He had pushed too hard, perhaps, but time was running out. Another 3 systems had fallen today. At this rate, the Krell would reach the inner worlds within weeks. 2 days later, another disaster struck. The Valorian Third Fleet, the pride of the Empire, engaged the Krell in a major battle near the Helios system. The fleet had been reinforced with the newest weapons and shields. The commanders had been confident. They were destroyed in 6 hours. Kyle was in his quarters when he heard the news. He immediately requested an audience with the Queen, expecting to be refused. To his surprise, he was summoned within the hour. Queen Solara looked like she hadn't slept. Her advisors stood around her, their faces showing shock and despair. Lord Kessian looked like he had aged a decade. "Ambassador Martinez," the Queen said, "you said humanity has been studying the Krell. You said you had ideas." She paused. "I am ready to listen." Kyle stepped forward. "Your Majesty, I need access to all your intelligence on the Krell. Battle records, sensor data, everything you have. Granted. I need permission to contact Earth and bring in our analysts. Granted. And I need you to trust me when I propose a strategy that will seem strange, maybe even wrong by your standards." Queen Solara met his gaze. In her golden eyes, he saw something new. Not just curiosity now, but hope. "If you can save my empire, Ambassador Martinez, I will give you anything you ask for." Kyle nodded. "Then we need to move fast. The Krell won't wait for us to prepare." Over the next week, Kyle worked around the clock. He brought in experts from Earth through secure communications. He studied every piece of data on the Krell. He looked for patterns, weaknesses, anything that could be exploited. The Valorian military commanders watched him with suspicion. This human, barely out of his own planet's orbit, presumed to teach them warfare? Many of them protested to the Queen, but Queen Solara had made her decision. She gave Kyle access to everything he requested. She attended his briefings personally. And slowly, as he laid out his analysis, she began to understand. The Krell hive mind is their greatest strength, Kyle explained one evening, pointing to a holographic display. But it's also a potential weakness. They think as one. Which means they respond to threats in predictable ways. If we can confuse that collective intelligence, even briefly, we can create opportunities. How do you confuse a hive mind? Lord Kessian asked skeptically. By doing things that don't make sense. By fighting in ways that seem irrational. Kyle pulled up a tactical map. The Krell expect direct confrontation. They expect fleets to meet them head-on. What if we don't give them what they expect? Queen Solara leaned forward. Go on. Hit-and-run tactics, false retreats, targeting their supply lines instead of their main forces, using psychological warfare, even though they're not individuals. Kyle's voice grew stronger. Make them uncertain. Make them hesitate. A hive mind that hesitates is a hive mind that can be broken. This is not how we fight, an admiral objected. These tactics will save lives, Kyle shot back. Your Majesty, I need permission to test these ideas. Give me a small force. Let me prove this can work. The room fell silent. Everyone looked at Queen Solara. She sat on her throne, thinking. Finally, she spoke. You will have your chance, Ambassador Martinez. But understand this. If you fail, the Krell will continue their advance. If you succeed, she paused. If you succeed, you will change everything we know about warfare. Kyle bowed. I won't fail. As he left the throne room, Kyle felt the weight of what he had promised. Lives depended on him now. An entire empire depended on him. And he had a secret that the Queen didn't know yet. He wasn't quite as human as he appeared. The human ship arrived 3 days later. It was called the Defender. A medium-sized vessel that looked tiny compared to Valorian warships. When it docked at the Imperial Space Station, many of the Valorian officers laughed. This is what humanity sends to fight the Krell? One admiral said mockingly. Kyle stood at the observation window, watching his people disembark. Captain Lisa Harper led them. A woman in her 40s, with short dark hair and sharp eyes. Behind her came a crew of 50, all volunteers who knew exactly how dangerous this mission would be. Captain Harper, Kyle said when they met in the docking bay. Welcome to Valoria Prime, Lisa saluted. Ambassador. We got here as fast as we could. She looked around at the massive Valorian station. This place is incredible. Wait until you see their battle fleets. They make this look small. And they're losing to the Krell? They're losing because they fight the same way they've fought for thousands of years. That's where we come in. Lisa's expression grew serious. The crew knows what we're volunteering for. Some people back home think we're crazy. Others think we're heroes. I just think we're doing what needs to be done. That's all any of us can do, Kyle said. The briefing took place in a Valorian military command center. Admiral Torvin, a veteran of countless battles, led the Valorian side. He made no effort to hide his skepticism. Let me understand this correctly, Torvin said, his voice dripping with disdain. You want to take one small human vessel and engage Krell forces that destroyed our entire Third Fleet? Not engage directly, Kyle corrected. Harass. Confuse. Disrupt. It's suicide. It's strategy, Lisa said firmly. We've studied your battle records, Admiral. Every time you meet the Krell in direct combat, they overwhelm you with numbers. You can't win a straight fight against them, so your solution is to run away? Torvin's face darkened. This is not how warriors behave. This is not how warriors behave. Kyle stepped forward. Admiral, with respect, this isn't about warrior pride. It's about surviving. The Krell are 3 systems away from the core worlds. In 2 weeks, maybe less, they'll be here. You can choose honor and die, or you can choose tactics that actually work and live. The room fell silent. Torvin looked like he wanted to argue, but Queen Solara, who had been watching quietly from the side, spoke up. Admiral, you have your orders. Provide Ambassador Martinez with the support he requires. Torvin's jaw tightened, but he bowed. As you command, Your Majesty. The plan was simple in concept, but difficult in execution. The Defender would enter a system where Krell forces were gathering. Instead of fighting, they would strike at supply ships and mining operations, then vanish before the main fleet could respond. They would make the Krell chase them, waste their resources, and create uncertainty in the hive mind. The key is speed, Kyle explained to Lisa and her crew. You hit them, then you're gone before they can coordinate a response. Make them think you're everywhere at once. Guerrilla warfare in space, Lisa said. We can do that. They launched the next morning. Kyle watched from the command center alongside Queen Solara and her advisors. The Defender's journey to the target system would take 8 hours. Do you really believe this will work? The Queen asked, quietly, when they were alone. I believe it's our best chance, Kyle said. Your fleets are powerful, but they're predictable. The Krell have learned to counter every move you make. We need to teach them that not every enemy fights the same way. And if Captain Harper's ship is destroyed, then we'll have learned something valuable. But I don't think that will happen. Queen Solara studied him. You have great faith in your species. I have faith in adaptability. That's humanity's real strength. We're not the strongest or the smartest, but we survive. 8 hours later, the Defender reached the target system. Telemetry data flowed into the command center. They could see Krell ships gathered around a gas giant, harvesting resources to fuel their fleet. Beginning attack run, Lisa's voice came through the communication system. On the displays, Kyle watched the Defender accelerate. It fired missiles at a Krell mining platform, destroying it in seconds. Then it changed course, hitting another target before the Krell could react. The Krell fleet began to move, dozens of ships turning to pursue this small attacker. But the Defender was already gone, jumping to another location in the system. It's working, Lord Kessian said, surprised. They're chasing her. Of course they are, Kyle said. The hive mind sees a threat and responds. But they can't catch what they can't predict. For 2 hours, the Defender played a deadly game of cat and mouse. It struck at vulnerable targets, drawing Krell ships away from the main fleet, then vanished before they could bring their weapons to bear. Each strike was small, barely damaging the overall Krell force. But the cumulative effect was clear. The Krell were confused. Their formations broke apart as different groups chased the human ship. Their coordination, usually perfect, began to show gaps. The hive mind didn't know how to respond to an enemy that refused to stand and fight. Finally, after the Defender had destroyed its 10th target, Lisa called for withdrawal. We're jumping out. Mission successful. The command center erupted in shocked murmurs. Admiral Torvin stared at the displays in disbelief. One ship, he muttered. One small ship disrupted an entire Krell gathering force. Not disrupted, Kyle corrected. Confused. There's a difference. They'll adapt eventually, but right now, they're uncertain. And uncertainty is something the Krell aren't designed to handle. Queen Solara turned to Kyle. Do it again. Different system. Show me this wasn't luck. 31. 257. Resima. 257. 6 time. 230. .com. .com. True 5. .com. 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 Over the next week, the defender struck at 3 more Krell positions. Each time, the results were the same. The Krell couldn't counter tactics they had never encountered. Their hive mind, so effective at coordinating massive fleets in conventional battle, struggled against an enemy that refused to be conventional. More human ships arrived. Small, fast vessels that could strike and vanish. Kyle coordinated them, teaching their crews the tactics of guerrilla warfare, adapted for space combat. The Valorian military watched in amazement as these tiny ships accomplished what their massive fleets could not. But success brought new problems. The Krell are changing their behavior, Kyle told Queen Solara during a private meeting. They're starting to adapt, keeping reserve forces ready to respond, splitting their fleets to cover more area. The hive mind is learning. Then what do? We escalate. The harassment was just the first phase. Now we need to strike at something that will hurt them badly enough to change their strategy. What do you propose? Kyle pulled up a star map. Intelligence suggests the Krell have a command nexus somewhere in this region. It's not like your command centers, it's a biological hub, a concentration of their collective intelligence. If we can damage it, we can disrupt their entire fleet coordination. Queen Solara's eyes widened. You want to attack their command structure? That will be heavily defended. Yes, which is why I can't use just the human ships. I need your help. For the first time, Kyle proposed a joint operation. Human ships would create a distraction while Valorian forces struck at the Nexus. It would require perfect timing and coordination between two species who barely knew each other. The planning took 3 days. Admiral Torven, despite his earlier skepticism, threw himself into the work. He began to see the value in Kyle's approach, even if it went against everything he had been taught. Your tactics are unorthodox, Torven said to Kyle. But they are effective. If we survive this war, military academies will study what you have taught us. If we survive, Kyle agreed. The night before the operation, Kyle couldn't sleep. He stood in his quarters, looking out at the stars, thinking about everything that could go wrong. One mistake, and hundreds of ships would be destroyed. Thousands of lives would be lost. He felt a presence behind him and turned to find Queen Solara at his door. Your Majesty, this is unexpected. I could not sleep either, she said, entering the room. Tomorrow, we gamble everything on your plan. Scared? Terrified. She came to stand beside him at the window. I have ruled for 300 years, Ambassador Martinez. I have made thousands of decisions, some good, some terrible, but never have I bet my entire empire on the word of one person. You're not betting on my word. You're betting on the idea that change is necessary. Perhaps. She looked at him. But there is something I must know before tomorrow. Something that has bothered me since the day we met. Kyle tensed. What is it? You are not like other humans. Oh. You hide it well. You seem ordinary enough on the surface. But I have lived too long to be fooled by surfaces. Her golden eyes searched his face. When Lord Kessian tried to read your mind, he found stillness. When you are in danger, you show no fear. When you plan these battles, you process information faster than should be possible for your species. She paused. What are you really? Kyle Martinez? For a long moment, Kyle said nothing. He had known this moment would come, eventually. Queen Solara was too intelligent to be deceived forever. I'm human, he said finally. Explain. Kyle took a breath. When humanity developed faster than light travel, there were accidents. Exposure to exotic matter, to energies we didn't fully understand. Some of us changed, evolved, maybe, or mutated. What kind of abilities? Enhanced mental processing, improved reflexes, a kind of intuition that borders on precognition. He met her gaze. And resistance to telepathy. How many of you are there? Not many. A few hundred, maybe. We keep it quiet. We weren't sure how other species would react if they knew humans could be more than we appeared. Queen Solara was silent for a long time. You lied to me. I withheld information. There's a difference. Is there? Her voice was cold. I have trusted you with my empire. With millions of lives. And you have been hiding what you truly are? I had to, Kyle said. If I had told you the truth from the beginning, would you have trusted me? Or would you have seen me as a threat? The Queen turned away. I don't know, she admitted. I'm sorry, but everything I've done has been to help. That part was never a lie. Queen Solara stood silent for what felt like an eternity. Finally, she spoke without turning around. Tomorrow, we attack the Krell Nexus. If we survive, you and I will discuss this deception further. She walked to the door, then paused. But know this, Ambassador Martinez, I do not forgive easily. She left, and Kyle was alone again, with his thoughts and the stars beyond his window. He had revealed part of his secret, but not all of it. Not yet. That revelation would have to wait. First, they had to survive tomorrow. The attack on the Krell Nexus began at dawn. 50 human ships and 200 Valorian vessels moved into position, their crews ready for the most dangerous operation of the war. Kyle stood in the command center, coordinating both forces. Queen Solara was there too, watching everything with those intense golden eyes. She had barely spoken to him since their conversation the night before. All forces report ready, Admiral Torvin announced. Begin Phase 1, Kyle ordered. The human ships struck first, hitting Krell positions across 3 systems simultaneously. It looked like another harassment operation, the kind they had been running for weeks. The Krell responded as expected, sending forces to counter the attacks. They're taking the bait. Lisa's voice came through the communication channel. Moving defense ships away from the Nexus region. Phase 2, Kyle said. The Valorian fleet jumped into the Nexus system. They came in fast and hard, weapons blazing. The Krell command hub was there, exactly where intelligence had predicted a massive biological structure floating in space, pulsing with strange energy. Engaging defensive forces, Admiral Torvin reported. His voice was steady, despite the chaos around him. On the displays, Kyle watched the battle unfold. The Valorian ships were magnificent in combat, their weapons tearing through Krell vessels. But the enemy had numbers. Always numbers. For every Krell ship destroyed, 2 more appeared. Casualties mounting, an officer reported. The Nexus shields are holding. Kyle studied the data flowing across his screens. Something was wrong. The Krell were defending more effectively than his models had predicted. It was like they knew where the Valorians would strike before they struck. They're adapting too fast, Kyle muttered. Then louder. All forces. Pattern Delta. Switch targets. Randomize firing solutions. But even as the order went out, Kyle knew it wouldn't be enough. The hive mind was learning in real time, countering every move. They needed something more. Something unexpected. Ambassador, Queen Solara said quietly. We are losing. She was right. Already, 15 Valorian ships had been destroyed. The Nexus remained protected, behind shields that seemed to grow stronger with each attack. At this rate, the entire fleet would be wiped out before they could accomplish anything. Kyle made a decision. Captain Harper, I need the defender at the Nexus, now. Kyle, that's suicide, Lisa responded. The defenses there will tear us apart. Trust me. Just get there. He turned to Queen Solara. I need to board that Nexus. It's the only way. Board it? The Queen stared at him. You would die instantly. Maybe. Maybe not. Kyle was already moving toward the door. I need a boarding shuttle. And 4 volunteers. This is madness. Lord Kessian protested. This is necessary. Kyle shot back. He looked at Queen Solara. Your Majesty, I know you're angry with me. But please, trust me one more time. For a moment, He thought she would refuse. Then, she nodded sharply. Go. But if you die, I will be very displeased. Kyle almost smiled. I'll keep that in mind. 20 minutes later, Kyle sat in a Valorian boarding shuttle with 4 Valorian soldiers. They looked at him like he was insane. And maybe they were right. Through the view screen, he could see the battle raging around the Nexus. This is the Defender. Lisa's voice crackled over the radio. We're moving in to create an opening. You'll have maybe 30 seconds. That's all we need. The Defender dove toward the Nexus, firing everything it had. For a brief moment, the shields flickered. The boarding shuttle shot through the gap, slamming into the biological structure's surface. Breach successful, the pilot reported. But we won't last long out here. Kyle and the soldiers rushed out. The surface of the Nexus was like nothing Kyle had ever seen. Organic corridors that pulsed with life, walls that seemed to breathe. The air was thick and warm. Move fast, Kyle ordered. They ran through twisted passages, past chambers, filled with strange organs that might have been computers or might have been living tissue. Krell drones appeared, small creatures that attacked with vicious speed. The soldiers fought them off, while Kyle led the way deeper. He didn't need directions. He could feel where they needed to go, like a pull in his mind. This was part of his ability. The enhanced intuition that had developed after his exposure. It was getting stronger, much stronger than it had ever been before. They burst into a vast chamber. At its center floated a massive brain-like structure, easily 50 feet across, covered in tendrils of light. This was the heart of the local hive mind. Set charges, Kyle ordered the soldiers. We'll blow it from the inside. But as they moved forward, Kyle felt something. A pressure in his mind, vastly more powerful than Lord Kessian's telepathic touch. The Nexus was aware of them. It was trying to enter his thoughts, to understand what they were. Kyle staggered, pain shooting through his skull. The others didn't seem affected. The Krell intelligence was focused entirely on him. He saw why immediately. The hive mind had never encountered a mind like his before. To the Krell, he was an anomaly. Something that shouldn't exist. They were trying to understand him, to analyze what he was. Ambassador. One of the soldiers grabbed his arm. Kyle couldn't answer. The pressure was building, like his skull was going to split open. But something else was happening too. His own abilities were responding, pushing back against the intrusion. He felt his mind expanding, growing stronger under the assault. And then he understood. His abilities weren't just defensive. They could attack. Kyle stopped fighting the connection. Instead, he opened his mind fully and pushed back. He sent his consciousness into the Nexus, into the vast network of thoughts that made up the hive mind. He felt millions of Krell, all connected, all thinking as one. And he introduced chaos. Kyle thought about human history, all the contradictions, the individual choices, the moments where people had chosen different paths. He flooded the hive mind with concepts it couldn't process: individual identity, personal choice, disagreement, doubt. The Nexus recoiled, trying to reject these foreign ideas. But Kyle held on, forcing the thoughts deeper into the collective consciousness. He showed them what it meant to be separate, to think alone, to question. The hive mind began to fracture. Outside, in the battle, the Krell ships suddenly stopped coordinating. Some continued attacking. Others broke off. A few even started firing on each other. The perfect unity of the hive mind was coming apart, but the effort was killing Kyle. Blood ran from his nose. His vision blurred. He felt his body starting to shut down under the strain. "Kyle," Lisa's voice screamed over the radio. "Whatever you're doing, do it now. The structure is collapsing." With the last of his strength, Kyle planted one final thought into the Nexus. Remember what it feels like to choose. Then he let go, and collapsed. The soldiers grabbed him, dragging him back through the corridors as the Nexus began to break apart. They barely made it to the shuttle before the entire structure exploded from within. Kyle woke in a medical bay 3 days later. Queen Solara sat beside his bed, and she did not look happy. "How do you feel?" she asked. "Like my head was split open," Kyle croaked. "Did it work?" "The Nexus was destroyed. The Krell fleet in that sector has fallen into complete disarray. Some groups are fighting each other. Others have fled. Whatever you did, it broke their unity." Kyle tried to sit up and immediately regretted it. "I told you. Enhanced human. No. What you did was beyond enhancement. You touched a hive mind and corrupted it. You projected thoughts across space. You survived what should have killed you instantly." Her golden eyes blazed. "Tell me the truth, all of it." So Kyle told her about the accident that had changed him, about how his abilities had been growing stronger over time, about how he was possibly the most powerful of the enhanced humans, though even Earth's scientists didn't fully understand what he was becoming. "I'm still human," he finished, "but I'm also something more, something new, and you hid this from me. I had to. If you had known from the start, you would have seen me as a threat. Now you know what I can do, but you also know I used it to save your empire." Queen Solara stood and walked to the window. She was silent for a long time. When she spoke, her voice was different, softer, thoughtful. "Do you know what frightens me most about you, Kyle Martinez? That I lied? No. That you were right." She turned to face him. "You said humanity's strength was adaptability. You proved it. You came to my empire, learned our ways, identified our weaknesses, and found a solution we could never have found ourselves." She paused. "And you did it while hiding your true nature from us. What else might your species be capable of?" "We're not a threat to you," Kyle said. "Aren't you? One human, acting alone, just crippled a force that threatened to destroy my empire. What could 1,000 humans like you do? 1,000,000? We're not enemies," Kyle insisted. "We came to you as friends. Friends who lie are just enemies who haven't revealed themselves yet." The words hurt more than Kyle expected. "So what happens now? Do you send me home? Declare humanity a threat?" Queen Solara returned to his bedside. "No. Because despite everything, you did save us. And because—" she hesitated. "Because I think I understand why you hid the truth. In your position, I might have done the same. So you forgive me?" "I didn't say that." But there was a hint of warmth in her voice. "I said I understand. Forgiveness will take longer." She placed a hand on his shoulder. "But we have time. The Krell are broken, but not destroyed. We still have much work to do. And apparently, I need you more than I care to admit." Kyle managed a weak smile. "Does this mean I'm not fired as ambassador?" "You were never just an ambassador, Kyle Martinez. You're something much more dangerous." Queen Solara smiled back. "You're someone who changes things. And perhaps that's exactly what my empire needs." Kyle recovered slowly over the next 2 weeks. His abilities had grown stronger from the confrontation with the Nexus, but his body needed time to adapt. He spent his days in the medical bay, and his evenings meeting with Queen Solara to plan the next phase of the war. The Krell were broken but not beaten. Without their central coordination, they had fractured into dozens of smaller fleets. Some retreated to the outer systems. Others continued attacking, driven by instinct rather than strategy, and a few, according to intelligence reports, were regrouping for one final assault. "They're gathering at the Terminus system," Admiral Torvin reported during a war council. "Every remaining Krell force in the region is converging there. We estimate 10,000 ships." The room fell silent. 10,000 was more than the Krell had ever brought to bear in a single battle. It was more ships than the Valorian Empire could field, even with their entire fleet assembled. "They're coming here," Queen Solara said quietly, "to Valoria Prime. This will be their last attack, and they're betting everything on it." "How long do we have?" Kyle asked. 5 days. Maybe 6. Lord Kessian shook his head. We cannot win this battle. Even with our new tactics, we cannot defeat such numbers. Then we need more than tactics, Kyle said. We need to change what the Krell are. Everyone looked at him. Explain, the Queen ordered. Kyle stood, though his legs still felt weak. When I touched the Nexus, I planted an idea in the hive mind. The concept of individual choice. That's why they fractured. But some of them are trying to rebuild the collective, to restore the old unity. If we can stop that, if we can force them to remain individuals, they'll lose their greatest advantage. How do you propose to do that across 10,000 ships? Admiral Torvin asked. I go back in, find their new central nexus, wherever they're building it, and finish what I started. You nearly died last time, Queen Solara said sharply. I'm stronger now. The first contact changed me, made my abilities more powerful. Kyle met her gaze. I can do this, but I'll need help. What kind of help? Everything you have. Every ship, every weapon, every soldier. The Krell will defend their nexus with everything they have. We need to break through, and I need to survive long enough to reach it. The Queen stood and walked around the table, studying the tactical displays. You're asking me to gamble my entire fleet on your plan. Again. Yes. And if you fail, then we all die together. The Krell won't stop with Valoria Prime. They'll consume every world in the Empire, and eventually, they'll reach Earth too. Queen Solara's expression was unreadable. Finally, she turned to her advisors. Begin preparations. Admiral Torvin. Assemble the Grand Fleet. Every ship we have. Call in vessels from the outer territories, pull ships from border patrols, empty the defense stations. I want everything we can fly ready for battle in 4 days. Your Majesty, Lord Kessian protested. If we strip our defenses, if we don't stop the Krell here, there will be nothing left to defend. The next 4 days were chaos. Ships arrived from across the Empire, thousands of vessels ranging from massive dreadnoughts to small fighters. Human ships came too. Earth had sent everything they could spare. It wasn't much compared to the Valorian fleet, but every ship mattered. Kyle spent the time preparing mentally. He meditated for hours, strengthening his mind for what was coming. His abilities continued to grow. He could sense things now, emotions in people around him, the flow of energy through the palace, even faint impressions of the future. On the evening before the battle, Captain Lisa found him in the palace gardens. You look tired, she said. I am, but I can't sleep. Worried? Terrified, Kyle admitted. Tomorrow, I have to do something that might kill me. And if I fail, millions of people die. Lisa sat beside him on the garden bench. You know, back on Earth, there are people who think you're already dead, killed during some diplomatic incident. Others think you've gone native, forgotten about home. She smiled. But I know the truth. You're doing what you always do, trying to save everyone. Someone has to. Yeah, but it doesn't always have to be you. She put a hand on his shoulder. Just promise me something. Tomorrow, when you're facing that nexus, remember, you're not alone. We'll be fighting beside you every step of the way. I'll remember. They sat in silence for a while, watching the moons rise over the alien landscape. Then Lisa stood. Get some rest, Kyle. Tomorrow's going to be hell. The battle began at dawn. The Krell fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel in a wave of ships that darkened the space around Valoria Prime. They came without formation, without coordination. But their sheer numbers made them terrifying. 10,000 vessels, all bent on destruction. The Valorian fleet met them head-on. 7,000 ships, the largest force the Empire had assembled in centuries. Human vessels flew alongside Valorian dreadnoughts, two species united against a common enemy. Kyle stood on the bridge of the Defender, watching through the view screen as the battle erupted around them. Space lit up with weapons fire. Ships exploded in brilliant flashes. The noise over the communication channels was overwhelming: orders, warnings, screams. There, Kyle said, pointing to a massive structure in the center of the Krell fleet. That's the Nexus. They're trying to rebuild it. It was even larger than the first one. A pulsing mass of biological technology that seemed to grow as they watched. Tendrils of energy connected it to the surrounding ships, rebuilding the hive mind connection. We'll never reach it through that many ships, Lisa said. We don't have to reach it alone. Kyle opened a channel to the entire fleet. All forces. This is Ambassador Martinez. Target the center formation. Everything you have. Clear me a path. The response was immediate. Hundreds of ships turned their weapons on the Krell forces surrounding the Nexus. The concentrated firepower was devastating. Ships exploded by the dozens, creating a corridor through the chaos. Go, Kyle ordered. The Defender shot forward, weaving through the battle at maximum speed. Behind them, Valorian and human ships followed, protecting their flanks. Krell vessels tried to intercept, but each one was destroyed before it could close the distance. They were halfway to the Nexus when Kyle felt it, a massive presence pushing against his mind. The new hive mind was aware of him. It remembered what he had done to the last Nexus, and it was ready for him this time. Pain exploded through Kyle's skull. He fell to his knees on the bridge, blood streaming from his nose. The hive mind wasn't just defending anymore. It was attacking, trying to destroy his consciousness before he could reach the Nexus. Kyle! Lisa grabbed him. What's wrong? It's fighting me, Kyle gasped. Trying to kill me before I can get close. Then we'll have to move faster. Lisa turned to her crew. Full power to engines. Ram that thing if you have to. But get us there. The Defender surged forward. Around them, ships were dying. The Krell were throwing everything they had at the human vessel and its escorts. But Admiral Torvin's voice came through the chaos, calm and determined. All Valorian ships. Protect the Defender at all costs. This is our only chance. Kyle fought to stay conscious. The hive mind's assault was relentless, battering at his mental defenses. But he pushed back, drawing on everything he had learned. All the strength his abilities had developed. He wasn't just defending anymore. He was adapting, evolving in real time under the pressure, and he realized something. The hive mind was powerful, but it was also inflexible. It attacked the same way, over and over, following patterns, just like the Krell fleet had done before. Kyle stopped defending and started countering. Every time the hive mind pushed, he pushed back in a different way. He changed tactics constantly, never giving it a chance to adapt. And slowly, incredibly, the pressure began to ease. We're almost there, Lisa shouted. The Defender slammed into the Nexus structure, deploying boarding pods. Kyle and a team of volunteers rushed out, fighting through Krell drones as they pushed deeper into the organic corridors. This time, Kyle knew exactly where to go. He could feel the central chamber like a beacon in his mind. They burst through the final door to find something impossible. The Nexus core wasn't just a biological structure. It was evolving, becoming something new. The Krell hive mind had learned from their last encounter. It was trying to become like Kyle, individual yet connected, adaptable yet unified. They're changing, Kyle whispered in awe and horror. The presence in his mind spoke for the first time, not in words but in pure meaning. We learned from you. We evolve. We survive. Kyle understood then. The Krell weren't just mindless consumers. They were a species trying to survive, using the only method they knew. And he had shown them a new way. He reached out with his mind, not to destroy this time, but to communicate. You don't have to consume everything, he thought. You can coexist. Change doesn't mean weakness. The hive mind resisted at first, centuries of programming telling it that only expansion mattered. But Kyle persisted, showing it images of cooperation, of different species living together, of strength through diversity. And slowly, impossibly, the Krell began to understand. The change rippled outward from the Nexus. In space, the Krell ships stopped attacking. Some continued fighting out of momentum, but others simply stopped, as if awakening from a long dream. The hive mind was fragmenting again, but this time into individuals who could still communicate, still cooperate, but also choose their own paths. Kyle, Lisa's voice came over his radio. Kyle opened his eyes. He was still connected to the Nexus, still in contact with the transformed hive mind. "They're not our enemies anymore," he said. "They're becoming something new." He severed the connection and nearly collapsed. The soldiers caught him, supporting him as they made their way back to the Defender. On Valoria Prime, in the command center, Queen Solara watched in amazement as the Krell fleet stopped fighting. Some ships jumped away, others remained, broadcasting signals that seemed almost like attempts at communication. "What happened?" Lord Kessian asked. "I think," the Queen said slowly, "humanity just changed everything we know about war." Kyle woke in the same medical bay as before. This time, Queen Solara wasn't sitting beside his bed. She was standing at the window, looking out at the city below. "How long was I out?" he asked. 2 days. She turned to face him. "Do you know what you've done? Saved your empire? Changed it." She approached the bed. "The Krell are communicating with us now. Individual groups, making their own decisions. Some want to trade. Others want to learn. A few are still hostile, but they're not organized enough to threaten us." She paused. "You didn't destroy them. You transformed them. Is that bad? I don't know yet." Queen Solara sat down, and for the first time, she looked uncertain. For 10,000 years, the Empire has known how things work. Species are either allies or enemies. Conflicts end in victory or defeat. But you've shown us something different. You ended a war not by destroying your enemy, but by changing what they are. "Sometimes that's the only way to truly win," Kyle said. The Queen studied him. "Your abilities have grown again, haven't they?" "Yes. Each time I use them, they become stronger. I don't know where it will end. Does that frighten you?" "Terrifies me. But it also gives me hope. If I can change, if the Krell can change, then maybe anything is possible." Queen Solara reached out and took his hand. The gesture surprised both of them. "Kyle Martinez, I owe you an apology. I judged your species too quickly. I thought humanity had nothing to offer but weakness and simple thinking." She smiled. "I was very wrong. So what happens now?" "Now, we build something new. The Valorian Human Alliance. Equal partners, combining your adaptability with our experience." She stood. "And you, Ambassador, will help me lead it. That is, if you're willing to stay." Kyle thought about Earth, about home. He thought about the empire he had helped save. And he thought about the future they could build together. "I'll stay," he said. 3 months later, Kyle stood on the balcony of his new quarters, watching the sun set over Valoria Prime. The city had changed since he first arrived. Human ships now docked regularly at the stations above. Mixed crews of humans and Valorians worked together on projects that would have been impossible before. The Krell, transformed by their encounter with individual consciousness, had established diplomatic relations. It was awkward and uncertain, but it was a beginning. Queen Solara joined him on the balcony. "Thinking about home? Sometimes, but this feels like home now too. I received a message from Earth today," she said. "They want to know if you'll accept a new title. Not just ambassador, but humanity's first galactic representative." "What did you tell them?" "That the decision was yours." She looked at him. "But I hope you say yes. We still have much to do. The galaxy is vast, and there are other threats out there. Other species that need to learn what you taught us." "What's that?" "That true power isn't about dominating others. It's about lifting them up, helping them become more than they were. She smiled. It's about knowing when to hide your strength and when to reveal it, when to fight and when to transform. Kyle looked out at the alien landscape that had become so familiar. I've been thinking about something you said once. You asked what makes humanity worthy of attention. If you wasted H plays. If you wasted H, I remember. That was only half true. Kyle turned to face her. We came to learn. Yes. But we also came to teach. Not because we thought we were better, but because we knew we had something to offer. The ability to adapt, to survive, to never give up, no matter how impossible things seem. And you've taught us well, Queen Solara said. They stood together in comfortable silence, two beings from different worlds, watching the stars emerge in the darkening sky. Somewhere out there, other species were facing their own challenges. Other wars were being fought. Other empires were rising and falling. But here, on Valoria Prime, a new chapter had begun. One written not by conquest or domination, but by friendship, cooperation, and the understanding that real strength lay not in revealing your power immediately, but in knowing when and how to use it to help others. Kyle Martinez, the human who had seemed so ordinary, had changed the Empire forever. Not through force, but through wisdom. Not through destruction, but through transformation. And the Queen who had ruled for 3 centuries had learned the most important lesson of all. Sometimes the greatest power is the willingness to admit you were wrong and embrace something new. Together, they would build a future neither could have imagined. A galaxy where strength came not from standing alone, but from standing together.